Operation Barbarossa was the German invasion of the Soviet Union starting on the 22nd of June 1941. Over the course of the operation, over 3.8 million personnel of the Axis powers, the largest invasion force in the history of warfare, invaded the Western Soviet Union along a 3,000-kilometer front with 600,000 motor vehicles and over 600,000 horses for non-combat operations. The offensive marked a massive escalation of World War II. The German military goal of Operation Barbarossa was the so-called Arkhangelsk-Astrakhan line. It was first mentioned in December of 1940. The hypothetical AA line was to stretch from the port city of Arkhangelsk on the White Sea in northern Russia along the confluence of the Volga River in the port city of Astrakhan at the mouth of the Volga River on the Caspian Sea. The plan was for the Red Army to the west of the line to be defeated in a quick military campaign in 1941 before the winter. The German Army High Command assumed that the majority of the Soviet military supplies and the main part of the food and population potential of the Soviet Union existed in the lands that lay to the west of the proposed AA line. If the line were reached, the Soviet Union would also be deprived of around 86% of its petroleum assets in the Caucasus region. Germany's invasion of the Soviet Union failed to secure any of these objectives, but one particular German unit almost reached Astrakhan. This was the 16th Motorized Infantry Division, nicknamed the Windhund or Greyhound. It took part in Operation Barbarossa with Army Group South later in the year. It advanced in the Caucasus with elements coming to within 20 miles to Astrakhan in 1942. This was the most easterly point reached by the German army during the war. Guarding the deep, open flank of Army Group A's eastern group of forces, the 1st Panzer Army, was a chain of powerful strongpoints manned by the 16th Motorized Infantry Division. A huge gap, nearly 300 kilometers across, gapped between the area south of Stalingrad and the Terek River, which the 3rd Panzer Division had reached near Mozdok. This unknown land between the Volga and the Terek appeared like a huge funnel. Its base was the coast of the Caspian Sea. All sorts of surprise could come from there. Therefore, the area had to be kept under close surveillance. At the end of August, the guarding of this huge no man's land was entrusted to a single division, the 16th Motorized Infantry Division. Its base was Elista in the Kalmyk steppe. No reinforcements were to be expected before the end of September. Therefore, at first, the task of surveillance and reconnaissance across the Caspian Sea and the Volga Delta had to be taken care by long-range patrols, which took the form of daring expedition-style operations. The first large-scale expedition operation along both sides of the Elista-Astrakhan road began in the middle of September. 3 patrols were sent out. Their assignment was as follows: discover if and where the enemy is feeding forces into the gap between the Terek and the Volga, carefully explore road conditions and conditions of the Caspian coasts. The patrols set out on the 13th of September 1942. The Scuds were taken from the Reconnaissance Battalion of the Motorized Infantry Division. In the German army, reconnaissance was a sophisticated and very complex undertaking, and the Reconnaissance Battalion was a key component of all divisions. This was especially so for the mechanized mobile divisions, and their reconnaissance battalions were not merely scout units. The tactical doctrine governing the employment of the Reconnaissance Battalion was that it should fight for information. Locating the enemy was only the first step. The Reconnaissance Battalion was then expected to develop the situation by forcing the enemy to deploy, revealing his strength and intentions. This was done by simulating a full-scale attack, both to acquire and report information and to buy time. Thus, the Reconnaissance Battalion had to have sufficient strength and firepower to make its attack appear plausible and reliable means of communication with the division's headquarters. The battalion headquarters company and the armored car companies were well equipped with radios, including long-range models to facilitate communication with higher headquarters. The armored car platoons had 4, 6 and 8-wheeled armored cars armed with machine guns and 20mm automatic cannons. Typically, these platoons would lead the way, probing for the enemy, with the motorcycle infantry company and the heavy company with its stowed infantry guns in close support, ready to go into action when contact was made. In September of 1942, for the long-range mission, each squad consisted of a couple of 8-wheeled armored cars, a motorcycle platoon, a medical unit, and several trucks with supplies and technicians. One squad got off in the northeast direction, where it reached to within some 6 kilometers of the lower Volga, which was defended, and it seems that this squad returned. The second squad set out to the southeast to confirm the existence of a railway from Baku to Astrakhan along the Caspian coast. They reached the railway at a small siding. They surprised the station staff and were lucky to arrive just before a loaded oil train chugged in, which the Germans promptly shut up with their 20mm cannons and machine guns, before blasting the station house and the rail line. After this action, the second German squad returned to the west as well. The third recon squad, actually going a bit further east, discovering a salty shore of the Caspian, approached it through the dunes. This story was repeated by an adjutant of von Paulus, who became a Soviet prisoner of war after the Battle of Stalingrad. He pointed out that the recon force actually reached the Caspian Sea. It was also confirmed by Soviet workers who were constructing a railway near Astrakhan. They claimed that they actually saw tanks with black crosses in the dunes. The mayor of Astrakhan was forced to arm these workers and issued some NKVD troops to guard the railway line. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and to make sure you don't miss my future work, please make sure you're subscribed to my channel and press the bell notification button. Thank you, and see you in the next video.